And in this chapter, Arjuna has spoken his predicament. He is in utter agony, just doesn't know what to do. His heart heavy, his mind blank. He just put aside his bow. Well, the Gita has two distinct dimensions to it. One is that it is a historical book. That means it is spoken at a particular time and a particular place. But it is also depicting universal themes. So Arjuna putting aside his bow signifies the discouragement, the pointlessness, the utter futility that we may sometimes feel when life confronts us with impossible choices. When whatever we do, there seems to be no way ahead. So it is at this time that Krishna will speak the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. So everything I speak today will be centered on this one diagram. It's a 4-quadrant diagram, that what we feel hurt by. In life, there are many things which hurt us. There are things which we feel hurt by and things we don't feel hurt by on the other side. So, and similarly, there are things what we learn through. We learn some lessons. I'll talk about what are the lessons, what we learn through, and what we don't learn through, conversely. So in life, we all go through various experiences. Some experiences are enjoyable, they are memorable, and sometimes, if somebody comes as a guest to our house and they've been very demanding, very complaining, and when they're leaving, and then we might say, having you as a guest was an unforgettable experience. Now, when we say unforgettable, it is an interpretable compliment. Was it unforgettable because it was so good, or unforgettable because it was so bad? It could be both ways. So sometimes what happens, some statements, we don't know whether they are compliments or they are veiled criticisms. So basically, in life, there are many routine events that we go through. If we look at our own life, most of our experiences, if we consider, even if we are here in the timeline, if we look at back at last one day or last 1 week or last 1 month or last 1 year, when I travel across the world, and generally I go to the same place once in a year, so I meet people. So earlier I used to ask, how are you? And that becomes a very general question, and especially in America, how are you is not meant to be a question, it's meant to be a greeting. It's like many times people ask, how are you, not even wait for the answer. So it's a greeting. So I try to change the question when I ask, so how was the last year for you? And then people have to think a little, okay, how was the last year? And generally I get an answer, oh, it was good, it was tough. And then basically why we say, how was the last year? The point is that if we look at each day, most of the experiences, we may not even remember them. They don't really register very powerfully. But if we look at our life, there are some experiences which tower in our memory. Which may tower because they are so wonderful, they are so positive, and some may tower in our memory because they are so negative. But there are some, so it's not that every experience that we go through is equally important. Some experiences are much more important than others. So now when we go through, important in the sense that they register for us. They may give us pleasure, they may cause us pain. Both they form impressions which lead to memories. Now, how we process those experiences, that is important. If you consider, here I just talk about life journey in this particular way, but if you look at our life journey, there is another way of looking at it. At the physical level, we go upward and then we go downward. Eventually we grow old and then we depart. Eventually our body falls to death. So now at the level of consciousness, so this trajectory is basically, we could say, natural and inevitable. This is what is going to happen to everyone. This is going to be the trajectory of our body. But while this is happening, the trajectory of our consciousness can keep moving upwards. The trajectory of our consciousness means it could be our wisdom, it could be our desire, it could be our learning, our what we have learned from life. Our wisdom can grow upwards, and ideally it should grow upwards. So in most traditional cultures, older people were respected, and it was not just because of their age. The understanding implicitly is that life is difficult, and anybody who has made it through life, that person has to have some substance, some experience, some intelligence, and that's how they have learned and grown. So the idea is that as we grow through life, our wisdom needs to grow. Sometimes we see that some people who may be 18, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, they get very upset over small things. And then if they get very worked up over small things, very agitated, we say, don't be such a baby. Don't cry over small things. The idea is you should grow up. Now one aspect of growing up is that we are not so affected by small things, isn't it? So growing up, it has many aspects to it, but one aspect is a child, if the toy breaks, the child may start crying. For the child, it may be like the end of the world. But as we grow older, now, okay, toys are nice, toys are important, but they're not so important. So one aspect of growing up, when I say when a consciousness grows up, we grow in wisdom. So growing up, we're talking here about growing up not biologically. Ideally with biological growth this should be happening. Growing up is that we start focusing on the things that matter. As we grow up, we start focusing on the things that matter more. That what if we start understanding what matters and we start focusing on the things that matter. So now this is the general growth that should be happening for all of us. Now if we go back to life over here, we look at this particular diagram. As I said, we go through many experiences. Now we can learn through the joyful experiences in life also. But generally, learning, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur says that the essence of learning is unlearning. That when we are learning something, what we are doing is, we are unlearning something that we knew before. In fact, so we will all go through experiences. Some experiences will be painful. Some experiences will be joyful. So for example, as a small kid, we may want to eat a lot of chocolates. A small kid may want to eat a lot of chocolates. Oh, it tastes so good. And then the child may want to keep eating chocolates, and maybe if the mother is not watching, the child sneaks to the fridge, opens the fridge and starts eating chocolates. And the child keeps eating, maybe it consumes 100 chocolates. I don't get any ideas if their kids are over here. But a child eats 100 chocolates, and then the next day the tummy hurts terribly. And then they have to go rush to a doctor, and then there is a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. And then the person learns, okay, eating is enjoyable, But eating too much has a price with it. And therefore, I should not eat so much. So, now that is, we may learn through experience. Now, ideally, when we learn, so we can learning, when we talk about learning, it can happen through broadly 3 ways. One is through intelligence. Intelligence means others tell us, and through that we learn. The second is that we learn through experience. Experience means that we go through something and we feel, okay, this is not really that important. Now, say we all get angry at times. Now, maybe our parents tell us, don't get angry. If you get angry, don't yell at others. Now, we may say, a child may say that, okay, sometimes what happens, parents may pamper some children. And the children throw temper tantrums. And the parents may sometimes treat the children as if they worship the child. They let the child do whatever they wants. Now, what happens is, the parents may tolerate the child like that, the child who throws temper tantrums, but other friends are not going to tolerate, isn't it? And if that child does not learn, if I get angry, if I yell at others, if I hit others, nobody will play with me. And when the child finds that, learn experience, the experience that, oh, nobody's ready to play with me, nobody wants to talk with me also. That's the experience, okay, why is this happening? Now, experience alone does not teach ever. Always intelligence has to be there. Because it's not just having experiences that makes us experienced. It is processing experiences with our intelligence that makes us experienced. It is so a kid is short-tempered, kid has a temper tantrum, and the kid yells at other kids, hits other kids, and then nobody wants to play with it. And the kid says, all these kids are very unfriendly. That's why they don't want to play with me. They are just mean to me. No, that's not the lesson to learn over there, isn't it? The lesson was that you were rude to them, you were harsh to them. So when we talk about experience, it's always intelligence plus experience. So you could say it's intelligence, or it is intelligence plus experience. So through experience, we learn certain things, but it alone does not teach us unless we process it through our intelligence. So, okay, I acted like this, that's why this happened. And therefore, I should not act like this. Now we may say there are only 2 ways to learn, and it's true. But I'll put another category over here. I'll put another category, that consequence. Now we could say, isn't experience a consequence? Well, yes, it is. But here I am using consequence as a consequence on something that really matters for us. Say if somebody is not very important for us, and we are rude to that person, and that person no longer talks with us. Okay, anyway, we might say goodbye and good riddance. It doesn't really matter. But then okay. What exactly was that? Was that a bell? Oh, okay. I think I should have this. I should use this strategy. It will keep audience awake in my classes. See, when I was growing up, since my childhood, I had a very great fascination for words. And one of my hobbies was just pick up a dictionary and memorize words. And I naturally developed a fairly good vocabulary. Also, in my childhood, I was a bit of a short-tempered person. So, never violent in the sense of being violent, but I used to get angry, and I used to have a little bit of a bad temper. Now, having a bad temper can be a problem, but I had another thing which made it a big problem. I discovered that having a bad temper and a good vocabulary is deadly. Many people, when they get angry, they may just stutter and stammer or they may just scream and but we can understand that that person is angry, but what they say doesn't make much sense. Okay, we might say this person is nutcase or this person is disturbed or something. We don't take them very seriously. But if somebody, see, normally what happens when we get angry, that the emotion of anger sidelines our intelligence. And that's why when we are angry, we can't make our case also very well. What they say is, speak in anger and then regret. Speak in a moment of anger and regret for a lifetime of what we have spoken in that time. Because generally we can't make a very coherent case when we are angry. Most of the time, anger just sidelines our intelligence. It stops our intelligence from working. But if somebody is normally articulate, then anger utilizes their intelligence. And at that time, people can be really sarcastic, can be cutting. So, I noticed that I was hurting a lot of people that I didn't want to hurt. So, it was then that I realized I have to get a handle on my temper. Because for me, the temper was leading to people feeling extremely hurt. And what was an asset, now having a good vocabulary, was turning into a liability for me. So sometimes we learn from experience, but experience could simply be just a minor pain. But when I am using the word consequence, that is a major pain. Major pain could mean that, say somebody was going up, wants to be a part of the football team, and school sport team they want to be a part of, and then maybe they are angry, they are a little short tempered, or they are a little negligent in their studies, and then people are a little displeased with them. But then they are told that, okay, because you don't have this much grades, you can't be a part of your school team, or nobody else wants you to be on the team, that's why although you have talent, we decide not to have you in the team. That's a consequence that really hurts. So experience can be a minor pain, but I am separating consequences, some serious pain. Like somebody is an alcoholic, and whenever they drink, after drinking, people feel a little bit high, but after that they have a hangover. Now the hangover is painful, but for many people they feel, yeah, the high of the drink is worth the low of the hangover. Once two people went for drinking, two friends, and one of the friends said, hey, you had a lot to drink now, I think drinking more is not a good idea. No, it's a great idea. And then they were staying together. The next morning, the friend who had drunk a lot, he said, I knew it was a terrible idea. And the second friend who had warned said, see, I told you, drinking so much was a terrible idea. He said, no, drinking was a great idea. Waking up was a terrible idea. So, sometimes we may go through an experience, but we may not learn through that experience. Or we may learn something different from what is the intention. So, basically, when we go through pain, now when we say we all are meant to learn in life, through life's experiences, through life's pains, there is something to learn. So what is this something to learn that is there? So generally speaking, there is one concept which comes very... Wow. Is there something to learn through this noise?
Somebody's phone is connected.
Okay. I'm sure it's not mine. No, I'm not getting any message. Okay. So, now, what I'm saying that, see, in the Vedic tradition, there is a concept of Artha. Now, Artha, this word, Artha ke anek artha hai. The word Artha has many different meanings. Now, one meaning is meaning itself. Now, like Shabdartha, what is the meaning of this word? Now, another meaning is, any other meaning of the word Artha? Yeah, that is, so what is that?
Money.
Yeah, you could call it wealth. Anything else? These dharma, artha, kama, moksha. What are these? Purush, artha. So what does artha mean over here? Goal or purpose. So artha can refer to wealth, it can refer to the purpose, it can also refer to meaning. So artha generally has the context of value, as a connotation of value. That when we do something, it has some value to it. And in one sense, we all have a hierarchy of artha. So artha is a hierarchy. That means there is something of less value, something of more value, something of even more value. So for example, say now you are sitting for this talk. Now, say you may want to sit comfortably, and sitting on the floor might not be the most comfortable thing. But if you feel that, okay, you want to be a part of a traditional learning setting, you want to learn something spiritual, so I am ready to tolerate the discomfort of sitting on the floor. So the being a part of a traditional spiritual setting or learning something valuable may be a bigger artha than physical comfort. And then we may decide, okay, I want to sit here. Now sometimes we feel, okay, learning is important, but the physical discomfort will be too much for me. Then we may decide that, okay, I need a chair to sit on. So basically, whenever we make decisions in life, in any decision there are competing arthas that are there. That what is more valuable, what is less valuable. And when we make a decision, it is based on what we think is more valuable. So for example, last 10 years I have been spending a lot of time in the West, almost 6 months. I'm outside India, actually 7-8 months, 3-4-5 months in America, then 2-3 months 1 month in UK, 2-3 months in Australia, New Zealand. So apart from the Indian diaspora over here, I also interact with local people over there. So Westerners, we could say. Now one thing here in Canada, now I'm in Canada also, I have coming. So now one thing I observe is that there are some unspoken conceptions of Artha. So for example, among Indians, it is not just Indians, you could say Asians in general, but let's focus on Indians. Indians, for example, taking care of children is considered a very important Artha. And so, because that is considered an important Artha, so the mothers may be ready to postpone their career for a few years, maybe take off from the job so that they care of the children. The parents, father may also decide that, okay, this is a good school locality, that's where I'll stay, because I want my child to flourish, even if that means I have to travel a little bit more, or even if that means that I could have got a more paying job somewhere else. But so the Artha, say, of taking care of one's family, taking care of one's children, is considered more important than just career growth. Career growth is of course wanted, and Indians are overall successful. Now, among Western people, I'm not saying it's universal, but quite often that Artha is not considered that important. In India, if somebody doesn't have a child, they often say childless. In the West, they don't like to use the word childless. It is, like I saw one website or one book I saw in an airport, it is like life for a child-free woman. A child-free woman. Now, it's not that a child is a burden. Yes, a child may cramp your lifestyle, but a child will bring a lot of meaning in your life. So, the idea is that you can be someone for everyone, or you can be something for everyone, or everything for someone. Something for everyone means, say we have a career, and then we have colleagues, we have clients, we have employees. Now we are important for all of them, but we are something for everyone, in the sense that, what does it mean? That if we are not there, somebody else is over there, and that person will do the job. It's not that we are irreplaceable over there. But for our family, for our child, either we can be something for everyone, or we can be everything for someone. For a child, the mother, and of course the father also, are the most important person in the life, especially in the formative years. So this is, now it's not that, say, people who prioritize career over family. our children are bad people. It's not at all like that. It's just that there is a artha, which artha is considered more important. There is a hierarchy that is made over there. And our decisions are often made based on which artha we consider more important, which artha we consider less important. So in the hierarchy, if we have some artha, now some artha, they can become our paramartha. That means this is what is most important for me. So something which is of value, when it becomes of the supreme value, when any artha becomes the paramartha, then that leads to anartha. So when an artha becomes the paramartha, it leads to anartha. So for example, money is important. But if money becomes the most important thing in someone's life, then when the money becomes the paramartha, then that leads to anartha. So when money becomes the most important thing of value for a person, then that will lead to greed. And when greed comes, then that person may, because of greed, give up their ethics, may even abandon or backstab their friends, may even abandon their family for that purpose. So when any artha becomes the paramartha, that leads to anartha. So for example, if we consider Duryodhan. Now what happened to Duryodhan? In the Mahabharata, it is described that when he was facing difficulty, what was his difficulty? He thought, I have a claim to the kingdom. But then, he said that Yudhishthira also has a claim to the kingdom. And I want to be the king, I don't want him to be the king. So, yeah, naturally, who will not want to be a king? Who will not want to be the prince who becomes the king? That's natural. But then, that became the Paramartha for him. And that's where problems start coming. So let's look at this. I would like to read some things. So who would like to read the first paragraph? Anyone would like to read? Yes, please.
My dear Lord, the challenges that the world throws upon me can sometimes be so complicated as to be overwhelming, stultifying and paralyzing. Just as Arjuna cast aside his bow, unwilling and unable to fight, many are the times when I have felt like casting aside my metamorphical bow, losing my will to fight against the problems that seem unfair, unending and unsolvable.
Yes, thank you. So now there are some problems where it is a simple choice. This is right, this is wrong. But there are some choices where there is right on one side and right on the other side also. And there is wrong on one side and there is wrong on the other side also. That's where it becomes much more difficult to choose. So Arjuna is facing such a choice right now. What is that choice? We will come to. But what happens is, when there are two arthas and both are pulling us at the same time, that time we feel overwhelmed. Say we are having a job and we have some urgent work meeting, and at the same time, say our child's school, they call us, we have a PTA meeting at this time. Now both are important for us. What do I do? See, when we feel overwhelmed or when we feel stressed, it is not just because we have too many things to do. It is that we have too many decisions to make about which things to do. Because none of us can do everything that we need to do. That's just life. We cannot, all the things we want to do, we'll never be able to do in life. Thinking that I will be able to do everything that I want to do is like believing that when I have to go on a travel, I can fit my whole house into my suitcase. That's never going to happen. So we will never be able to do everything that we want to do in life. But stress comes when there are too many decisions to make about what things to do. And we feel overwhelmed. Okay, on what basis do I decide? I want to do this also and I want to do this also. I don't want to let go of this also. I don't want to let go of this also. So that's when the trouble starts coming. So Arjuna, when he is feeling stress over here, he is having a breakdown. So his breakdown is because it is not because of too many things to do. That can definitely be a cause of stress, but it is mainly because of too many decisions to make about things to do. The first can cause stress, the second causes much greater stress. So that's when we feel overwhelmed. So now, as I was telling over here, when an Artha becomes the Paramartha, it leads to an Artha. So for each one of us, we have a certain conception of what is of value in my life. And when that particular thing of value is challenged for us, at that time we have to decide, how important is this for me? Do I want to hold on to this despite the problems I am facing, despite the pain I am going through, or maybe this is not as important as I thought? So anything that causes pain, if I go back to this particular example, this particular diagram, that what we feel hurt by and what we learned. So what we feel hurt by is essentially, why do we feel hurt by it? Because some Artha, something of value is threatened. So for example, what we feel hurt by, say we think we are very close to someone and we have done a lot for that person when they were in need, and then when we are in need, we ask that person for help and that person doesn't respond at all. Nowadays in teenage vocabulary there is this term called ghosting. Now ghosting is used in a particular sense, that you break up with a person and you don't even acknowledge as if they exist. It's like that person is, you made that person into a ghost. But it can be used in other contexts also. That person doesn't even respond to us at all. Then we feel hurt. It is not just that that person didn't help me. It was that, okay, I thought I needed help, but I also valued the friendship. So what we thought we had a relationship, we had a friendship, and that friendship is being threatened. So then maybe what we learn through that is, maybe this person is not a person I can count on. So I might have given more Artha to this person than what I actually thought it was. Like what is that? A friend in need is a friend indeed. Now when we have money, when we have fame, when we have resources, many friends may come around us. But when those things are not there, which are the friends stay with us? So what happens for all of us? That we often assign more Artha to things than what they are worth. Of course, it's also possible that we assign less Artha to some things. So basically, what has how much value? What is how important? That is the essential thing that we need to learn in life. So through our experiences, we learn what is more important. And I said learning involves unlearning. Unlearning is, hey, maybe this is not that important. I thought this was important, but actually this is more important. So if all this seems a little abstract, let's try to illustrate this with some example. I'll take something from the Mahabharata and then we'll move to something from our daily life. So in royal families, there is this concept called heir. You heard of this? If somebody is a king or a patriarch, somebody is a very wealthy, influential person, then they want to have a successor. So especially when things were going down in a dynasty, there was an heir. So the parents would be very concerned that we should have a successor. Now after they have an heir, they're still concerned if something happens to the heir. So what do we do? So along with the heir, they have a spare. So now the spare is in a very weird position, because the spare is never going to inherit and become the king unless something happens to the heir, something bad happens to the heir. Now no sibling would normally want anything bad to happen to their sibling, but if something bad doesn't happen to them, then something bad is going to happen to them, or at least something as good as could happen is not going to happen. So, now Duryodhan, he thought he was the heir, because the Pandavas were born in the forest. Actually, Pandu had renounced the world and gone to the forest, and because he had gone to the forest, nobody knew whether he would have children, even if he had children, whether the children would come back, whether children would lay claim to the kingdom. So the child that was there, he was given attention, he was pampered, he became a bit spoiled. He developed a little bit of an entitlement mentality. And then suddenly, the Pandavas came back. Their father unexpectedly, shockingly passed away. And they came back. Now, Yudhishthir was a new child. See, in any home, if a new child comes, everybody pays attention to that child. And everybody wants to love a child. And if the child is sweet and well behaved, then everybody showers love on that child. That's just natural. So what happened over here? Yudhishthir and the Pandavas in general, they had lived in the forest. They did not have any servants to attend to them. So they had no entitlement mentality. In fact, they were associated with sages, and their parents had trained them to be polite and respectful. So the Yudhishthir and the Pandavas, Yudhishthir was a new child and Yudhishthir was a much more polite child. And also Yudhishthir was older, slightly older. So now, because of these three things, his behavior, his age and his newness, what happened was, everybody started paying more attention to Yudhishthir. And then suddenly Duryodhan felt that from the heir I have become the spare. That I have lost my entitlement to the kingdom. So now this, when it happened, he felt as if someone had come and nabbed him. Nab is what? The newness. Yudhishthira was a new child. The age was there. He was older. And his behavior was also more polite. So, okay. Age and behavior. So because of all these three things, he just felt as if what was mine was nabbed from me. And then actually he became insecure. He started feeling envious. So now at this point, this feeling is understandable. It's natural. Who would not feel insecure? Who would not feel jealous? It's natural. It's not a desirable feeling, but it's a natural feeling. But when this comes, see, when something unpleasant, something distressing happens to us, what do we do at that time? So what is the Artha that we value the most? So he could have thought that, okay, maybe I should also improve my behavior. Maybe I cannot become older, I cannot be new, but I can also become more cultured, I can also become more polite. And maybe there is some amicable division of the kingdom that will be there. But instead of going down that direction, what did he do? He started, see, insecurity is understandable. Now, insecurity is something we all feel. Insecurity is more about me. I feel I'm not good enough. I feel as if I'm threatened. I feel that something of value is going to be taken away from me. But from there, when envy comes, insecurity is more about the self. Envy is about somebody others. And from envy, it went to enmity. Envy is more in the mind. It's more at the level of thoughts. But enmity is more in terms of actions. And what did he do? He tried to poison Bhima. He was just a teenager at that time. Can you think what kind of demons must be there inside him? Of course, according to tradition, he himself was a demon. But the point is that what kind of darkness must have decided inside him to think that I'm going to kill this person. So then, when that didn't work, he decided, I'll kill their entire family, including their mother also. It's a horrendous thing. So now, we could just say this is a terrible person, it's a demon, and end it. But sometimes understanding the psychology of demons also helps us understand what they were thinking. So for example now, there are two Artha over here. One is the Artha of the kingdom. And you could say the other Artha could be that they are a part of my family. The other Artha could be basic decency. They have lost their own father. They come back, they're bereaved, they're grieving. Or at a basic level, there could be humanity. There could be morality. So all these arthas, the kingdom became the biggest artha for him, and everything else was forgotten. So what happens is, when one artha becomes the Paramartha, then that leads to anartha. So when we go through life, what hurts us and what teaches us? So we could say, going back to this particular diagram now, now we don't feel hurt by things and we don't learn out from things. We could say almost most of our life falls in this category. By most, I would say almost like 70, 80, 90% of our life, it's about routine things that we have to do. We talk with people, we deal with things, we have functional things to do in our life. So most of our life falls in that category where we don't feel very hurt and we don't learn much. Now, if we put these as 4 quadrants, which is the best quadrant among these 4? Okay, 4. How many of you say 4?
It's 3.
Okay. How many of you say 3? 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the 3 would be easier, isn't it? Yeah.
I'll change from 4 to 3.
4 to 3. Okay. Thank you. So we could say that if we could learn without feeling hurt, that would be the best, isn't it? Now, generally, it is very difficult. We could say, when we say hurt also, to what degree is the hurt? So we could say, here it's learning through intelligence. Then from here, we move towards experience. And then eventually way in here is we learn through consequence. So what we learn through without feeling hurt by, that is, now there is some amount of hurt even when there is intelligence also. Because when somebody speaks something and we have to revise our conceptions. I thought this was important, but this is not important. Like somebody is an alcoholic, loves to drink alcohol. And then one alcoholic once told his sponsor who was trying to help him get over alcohol, yesterday I read a very powerful article about the dangers of drinking alcohol, and that article was so powerful that it spurred me to immediate action. Oh, wonderful. His supporter says, what action did you take? He said, I immediately stopped reading the article. So sometimes what may happen is that, because even at the level of intelligence, what happens? There is some amount of letting go, some amount of losing the conception that I have. And that also involves a pain, but you could say that's very little pain as compared to the bigger pain that might be there. So when we say we feel hurt by, it's not that much hurtful, but it is hurtful. So what we feel hurt by and what we learn through. So the philosophy is about deep thinking. Now, why should we think? So there's one Western philosopher who said that, thinking ensures that our thoughts die instead of we dying because of our thoughts. Thinking ensures that our thoughts die instead of we dying because of our thoughts. So if I think through things, a child thinks, okay, I want to peer out of the window from a 50-story building. And you peer out, and then the mother says, what are you doing? The child says, I'm not afraid. Mother says, that's why I'm afraid. Isn't it? You should be afraid. There's a serious price to pay over there. So sometimes if somebody is ready to do, suddenly doing something very foolish, maybe they are interested in, we're going to invest their whole life's wealth in some scheme they heard 15 minutes ago. And it says, your whole money will be doubled in 3 months. And he said, what will say? Have you thought this through? So like, we let that thought die instead of your whole wealth dying. And then you may die. So the idea is that when we intelligence, what happens is our thoughts, not all thoughts, or thoughts, those which are unwise thoughts. Now, unwise means what? Those, they die instead of we dying, instead of us. So now Duryodhan, he could have learned. See, each time he tried, the Pandavas came back stronger. He tried to poison Bhima, but Bhima survived and came back stronger. He tried to burn the Pandavas got married to Draupadi and came back as relatives of a very powerful rival kingdom. Each time his plans backfired, they came back stronger. He could have thought, is this really worth it? But he did not do that. So, when we say somebody is obstinate, what does that mean? They have a particular conception of Artha, and that is what they are going to hold on to. This is the most important thing, and I don't care. I don't want to learn from anything else. So in general, when we hear Shastra, when we hear scripture, we see the experiences of wise people or experiences of various people. And from their experience, we start understanding how basically different people have given different degrees of Artha, of value, how much a value they gave to something. Now Yudhishthir, initially when Bhima came and Bhima came back seething with rage. And he came to know that Duryodhana had tried to poison him. He said, I am going to beat him to pulp. I am going to teach him a lesson. And Yudhishthir said, let's not do that right now. He said, right now you don't have any evidence. It will just be your word against his word. And we are new over here. We don't know who the elders will favor. We don't want to break our family apart. So at that time he decided that keeping the family together was a bigger artha than getting back at someone. But then, eventually, when Draupadi was dishonored, and his own family members, they were mocking and laughing. Even Dhritarashtra, who had till then at least put on a mask of neutrality, that mask fell from his face. Has Panchali been won? Has Panchali been won? She is like your own daughter-in-law. She's from your own family. So when that mask fell, then Yudhishthira decided finally enough is enough. And especially after 13 long years, when even after that they insulted Krishna, they tried to arrest Krishna. These people have not learned anything at all. Sometimes nowadays there's this utopian idea that war is always bad. Well, no. Sometimes war is bad, but sometimes the not having a war can be worse. Isn't it? That war is terrible, but the alternative to war may be even more terrible. Not that always it is. War should never be the first solution to a problem. But sometimes that's the only way. Because some people may hold on to their artha, what they think is artha, no matter how much anartha is caused to them or to others because of that. The Krishna's peace negotiations failed, not because Krishna lacked skill, but because Duryodhana lacked conscience. He had no sense of what is truly valuable, and he was ready to cause the destruction of his entire dynasty just because he wanted to hold on the kingdom. So now, for all of us, what is our artha? See, Yudhishthir never had greed. See, sometimes when he says an artha can be the Paramartha. A smaller value can be a bigger value. That smaller thing can be bad, but that bad may be made the most important thing. So, if we consider the Pandavas and Kauravas, I'll conclude with 2 points now. We'll talk about, say, that there is Artha. When we consider the Artha to be the Paramartha, Now there are two possibilities, that the Artha can be something bad, and that something bad was considered Paramartha. That was the case of the Kauravas. See, eventually for Duryodhan it did not even become about having the kingdom. So when the Pandavas were in the forest, he already had the kingdom, but he didn't have happiness. And that's why he went to the forest to exhibit his prosperity. In India, there was a brand of TV brand, I think, which is gone now. I don't think it's there. Onida TV. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, on it.
It had a tagline. You remember the tagline?
Owner's pride. Neighbors envy, owner's pride.
Yes, neighbors envy, owner's pride. The idea is both get anarthas. Isn't it? So the idea is my happiness comes by your unhappiness. I saw a car advertisement which was very similar. It says, drive this car and enjoy the envy in your neighbor's eyes. Now, what a pathetic standard of enjoyment. Isn't it? That it's not that drive and how comfortable the car is, how smooth it is. No. That you drive the car, see how much others are unhappy. It's like your unhappiness is my happiness. It's a terrible standard of happiness. Now this is what happened to Duryodhan. He had the kingdom. In fact, his plan succeeded better than what he had thought of also. He wanted to take the Pandavas' kingdom, but Yudhishthira staked everything. And his plan was spectacularly successful. He had the kingdom, but he didn't have happiness. So for him, why is it bad? You could say having a kingdom is not a bad thing. But slowly, see, if we are not careful, if we hold on to some anartha, what happens is the goalposts keep shifting. And for him, initially he thought, okay, I want the kingdom, why should he have the kingdom? But from having the kingdom, the goal became making him miserable, making them miserable. So he thought that when I go to the forest with all my prosperity, and by seeing how happy I am with my prosperity, they will become unhappy because they are in so much poverty. And by seeing how unhappy they are, then I will become happy. Such a twisted logic. So for him, it was hurting the Pandavas. That became the Artha for him. Having Pandavas suffering, that was the Artha for him. So, see, when he wanted to disrobe Draupadi, sometimes say violating women, this is a horrible part of human history. Sometimes it's thought it's a crime of lust. It can be, but more often it is a crime of ego and pride and power. Because somebody is simply lusty, they could just go to a prostitute. But the idea is, I want to force myself on you. I want to bend and break you to my will. And especially when you do that, it's like, I have complete power over you. And so it is more of, for them, it was not just, it was more of humiliating Draupadi. And through that, humiliating the Pandavas. So your unhappiness is my happiness. It's all about hurting others. Now for the Pandavas, especially for Yudhishthira, it was for them, the Artha was actually something good. And that was the dynasty. Is it a part of our extended family? We need to protect the dynasty. So now, what happened? Yudhishthira realized that protecting the dynasty is important, but in protecting the dynasty, there is being adharma. Duryodhana is the kind of person, if he becomes the king. See, Arjuna also, for him, what is happening is that he is torn between two arthas. On one side is the kingdom. The other side is the dynasty. So Arjuna, if the kingdom is a greater artha, he should fight. If protecting the dynasty is a bigger artha, then don't fight. So he felt that The Kauravas are greedy. They are ready to destroy a dynasty for the sake of kingdom. But should I be that greedy? I don't want to be that greedy. So, which Artha is more important? So, initially when he came, he was ready to fight. But when he saw the stakes involved, he felt, I cannot fight. So, it was two competing Arthas over there. And what Krishna did for him, this is the last part we'll talk about. This take will about 1.5 hours. No, about 5-10 minutes will take. See, what Krishna did was, Krishna said that you cannot, there are some times when there are two Arthas, now which should be valued more? Should the dynasty be valued more? Should the kingdom be valued more? Both, you could say there are duties associated with both. So Krishna says to understand which Artha is more valuable. First, you have to be clear about what is Paramartha. And so we all have a particular conception of what is Paramartha, but among this whole hierarchy of Arthas, the Paramartha is Krishna. The Paramartha is God. He is not just the topmost meaning. Yes, Krishna is the being of the topmost value. But along with that, he is also the sustainer or the provider of value for everyone. Everything gets its value from Krishna. Say, for example, when a newborn, I was talking earlier about parenting. For a newborn baby, when the mother offers her breast milk, it is one of the most intimate acts of love. The baby would not survive without a mother's love. So it is the mother's love, no doubt. But is it only the mother's love? The mother does not do anything special to manufacture milk in her breasts at that time when the child is born. The God who sent a child through her womb into the world also sends milk in her breasts for that child. So it is the mother's love and it is also the God's love expressed through the mother. So everything of value, it has value, but it also gets its value from Krishna. That's the theme of that well-known prayer. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva, tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. So, Tvameva Mata, you are my mother, you are my father, you are my sibling, you are my friend. So, it's a normal growth trajectory. For a newborn baby, the mother is the most important thing. The baby may not even recognize the father initially. But then the father becomes much more. Father is also important. The father is in many ways, the provider. They're different roles, complementary, essential both. Then as the child grows up, the child, okay, I have siblings also. Siblings, they are more like my age, they are my friend, I have a different relationship with them. Then child grows up, child discovers friends. Then as we grow up, then we learn some valuable skills. Tvameva vidya. And through the skills, we get wealth. Tvameva dravinam. So first there is talk about relationships or people in our lives, but then it's talking about things in our life. They're also of value. So everything of Artha, whether it is the Mata, the mother, the Pita. Now, I'm not necessarily putting it here that the friends are more important than the siblings are more important than the parents. We're saying that in this particular verse, the idea is higher. The progression of a child, how child values different things. So even its wealth, even it is all this, Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Everything, my Lord, gets value from you. So ultimately, when we feel hurt in life, that means something that we consider to be of Artha is being taken away from us. Or it is being exposed as not having that much Artha. So when that happens, what do? What Krishna tells Arjuna is that Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. So there is Artha 1, there are two Arthas. There is Artha 2, there is Artha 1. When we feel torn between these, what we need to do is, we need to connect first with Paramartha. So when we connect with Krishna through Paramartha, and then through that Krishna conscious vision, we look at the various arthas. Which is more important? So this learning that Krishna is the Paramartha, this takes time, this takes effort. See, Draupadi had her husbands with her, and still a time came when none of her husbands could help her. That was time. See, if we lose what we consider as of Artha, and we don't have a conception of some higher Artha, then we just lose hope. Then we just give up. So if somebody, their career is the most important thing in their life, and they have sacrificed all relationships or friendships, all family for the sake of career, and suddenly they lose their career. Maybe they have a career-ending injury, or there's a whole upheaval in the economy and they lose their career. Sometimes people end their life because of losing their career. Why? Because if we don't find some Artha, when we lose one Artha, we have to find some other Artha. If we can't find some other Artha that we can hold on to, then we'll feel what is the point of living. So here, what happens, Krishna tells Arjuna that you look at what is the Paramartha. And then in the light of Paramartha, Krishna says, this war is not just about you and you taking revenge and you getting a kingdom. It is about establishing a virtuous order in the world. And that virtuous order will be established if vicious people like Duryodhan are removed. So, for us, when we face very difficult decisions in our life, when we feel conflicted about what to do, praying to Krishna, connecting with Krishna, that Krishna is what matters. And we understand Krishna is what matters. After that, we can turn and then in that light see which things matters more for us. And based on that, we make decisions. So for each one of us, the Gita offers us this journey. So we can learn through experience, we can learn through intelligence, or we can learn through consequence. Now, for Arjuna, he learns through, if we go back to this particular point, if we see at this particular point, Arjuna has to fight a war. If he doesn't fight a war, what is going to happen? He doesn't fight. He may not fight, but he may even get Yudhishthira to not fight. But he is not likely to get Bhima to not fight. And then even if he doesn't fight, most likely the Pandavas are going to fight. And they will suffer more casualties if he is not there on their side. Even if somehow he gets the entire Pandavas to persuades Bhima also don't fight. Even then, is Duryodhana going to stop persecuting them? Duryodhana's goal of life is to make their life miserable. He's not going to stop that. Even if somehow they come to an agreement and Dhritarashtra says, I'll control Duryodhana, and somehow Duryodhana stops persecuting them. But will Duryodhana stop persecuting all those who have chosen to be on the side of the Pandavas? No, absolutely not. In a war is cruel. When you take one person's side, before the war, both the party, the Pandavas and Kauravas, were seeking allies. And Duryodhana had petitioned many of the kings who had chosen to be on the Pandavas' side. Duryodhana would have taken vengeance against all of them. You dared go against me, I will teach you a lesson. And Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, is by nature a protector. And he may say, I am ready to sacrifice for myself. But when he hears about all their allies being persecuted, he will not be able to live with himself at that time. So, it's going to be painful for Arjuna to have to fight against his relatives. But Krishna is teaching him. So, we could say Arjuna, when he learns, Krishna is helping Arjuna learn at this level. Or we could say it's somewhat at this level. The experiences, he has come on the battlefield. The consequences, at least to some extent, he's getting some experience of how painful it is going to be. So generally, if we study scripture and take scripture seriously, that means we contemplate what we are learning, then gradually through that hearing itself, our conception of Artha will evolve. And as that evolves, we will be able to let go of the things that life takes away from us. And life will still be painful for everyone of us, but it doesn't have to be so painful. When life is hurting us in some way, if we are holding on to the things that life is taking away from us, or life is exposing the lack of value of those things, if we keep holding on, then it will hurt much more. But okay, I am losing this Artha. Krishna, what is it that you are revealing to me is the actual Artha. When we are open to learning that, then Krishna will guide us towards Paramartha. That does not mean that all Artha will be taken away from us. But in this world, some Artha will come, some Artha will go. But if we are holding on to Paramartha, that learning what actually is Paramartha is the essence of what life is meant to be all about. And this is what the Bhagavad Gita helps us get to, and this is where we all can get to by learning the Bhagavad Gita. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. There's 3 main points. That the topic was learning through pain, or learning through. So when we talk about pain, in many ways pain is unavoidable in life. But what exactly is pain? So pain is when we lose something of value. Or we lose that thing, or when we lose we could say, lose our conception of its value. Oh, I thought this was important, but I realize it's not that important. So, our conception of its value, that is what pain is caused by. So now, in general, I was talking about this main diagram, that is what we learn through, or what hurts and what we learn through. So most of our life falls in this category where it's not memorable in either way. Now, if we can learn by hearing intelligence, that is the best. If we have experience, that means it's a little tough, little experience we get, but consequence means we lose something of serious value for us, and that's when we learn. So for each one of us, we discuss the conception of Artha, that it's a hierarchy. We all have certain things of value, and like that we evolve in understanding what is Artha. But when an Artha becomes the Paramartha, so like for Duryodhan, the kingdom and eventually hurting the Pandavas became the Paramartha, that leads to Anartha. So so pain, the hurting part is because what is happening is that something which we consider to be Artha is being lost. But when that happens, when there is hurting, we hold on to the Artha, and then that leads us to greater hurting for us and for others. Or we learn. Learn, and learn means what? We let go of that thing to hold on to a higher Artha. And the higher Artha is, the actual Paramartha is Krishna. So now Krishna is the Paramartha doesn't mean that he is just the topmost Artha, but he is also the sustainer of all Artha. Everything of value gets its value from Krishna. When we understand this part, that all Artha comes from Krishna, then we can move forward in our lives and we can choose initially itself in our lives. When we feel torn, there's one Artha and there's another Artha. So instead of simply being conflicted over those Arthas, we first connect with Krishna, and in that light we decide which is of more value for me. And that way, when we are learning about how Krishna is the Paramartha, then life will hurt much lesser for us. And even when what we think of Artha is threatened or lost, the Paramartha of Krishna is there with us, and that's how life's pains will become much, much lesser. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Let's conclude by offering this prayer once again. O Lord of my heart,
O Lord of my heart,
let me never lose heart.
let me never lose heart.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Are there any quick questions or comments? Yes, bro.
Prabhu, how would we know if something is worth tolerance and if Krishna really wants us to be in that fourth quadrant? Or maybe if it's intelligence, if it's pleasing to Krishna to actually put the bow aside. Did I make myself clear? Basically, how do I know if something is worth tolerance? There could be some unfavorable situation. Is that a test from Krishna, or what do you think? Like casting aside the bow makes sense.
So, how many of you were there yesterday? No, very few of you. Okay. So, okay, then I'll repeat a couple of points over here. See, yesterday I talked about this thing that there is tolerance that Krishna talks about in 2.14 in the Bhagavad Gita, Tamsi Tiksha Bharata. But before that, in 2.13, he's talking about intelligence. So, intelligence, what it does is, it helps us to understand what are the big things in our life and what are the small things in our life. Srila Prabhupada explains that intelligence means to see things in their proper perspective. And tolerance is to keep small things small. Keep small things small and to keep big things big. So, what does this mean practically? See, in life, we could say that whenever we are facing some problem, it's because of our past karma. And that's one way of looking at it, that's true. But the purpose of life is not going to be fulfilled just by exhausting our past karma. The purpose of life is going to be fulfilled by doing our present dharma. Isn't it? So, if we are having a job and we have a very disagreeable boss, we have a very toxic work culture. Now we could say that, oh, this is because of my past karma. Okay, that may be true. But if while working over there, we become very irritable, we become very cynical, we become very bitter, and that bitterness is poisoning our entire life, where we take it out on our family. Then, if we are not able to do our dharma towards the family, we are not able to do justice to our God-given talents, then better leave that place. Now there are going to be problems in every place, but the point is that are we able to do our dharma over there? So in general, toleration has to be decided based on what is my dharma and am I able to do it right now? So for example, if in a class a baby starts crying, now is that a disturbance? Of course it's a disturbance. But if I yell at the mother, take care of your baby. Can't you take care of your baby? What kind of mother are you? What is going to happen? At the end of the class, the baby crying would have been a minor disturbance, but that I spoke like that will be the defining memory of all the audience over there. And that will cause a bigger disturbance. So, keep a small thing small. Yes, maybe the mother or the parents take away the baby. Or if that doesn't happen, then I can be polite and civil and tell. If the baby is continuously crying and nobody is able to hear the class, then should I tolerate that? Well, it's no longer a small thing, it's becoming a big thing because the purpose over here is to have the class going on that is getting obstructed. But then that also has to be done in the proper way. So The point is that we shouldn't be deciding simply about what we should tolerate or how much we should tolerate. We should be focusing on what am I trying to do over here? What is my dharma in this situation? And based on whether we are able to do our dharma or not, we can decide what to tolerate and what not to tolerate. Okay? Thank you. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the class. I had a question regarding, so you gave the example of Arjuna and how he was debating on whether to fight or not, but he had the guidance of Krishna to tell him that he should fight, so he made the right choice in terms of Artha. But let's say in terms of modern day, where soldiers are going into another country and they have to fight, how can they know if it's the right fight or not? How can they make a choice in terms of Artha?
Well, first thing is that Krishna did not really guide Arjuna specifically. That Krishna did not make Arjuna dependent on his guidance. See, if Krishna had the value system that Krishna had wanted to teach was that, you follow my guidance, then Krishna did not have to speak the entire Bhagavad Gita. Krishna could have just finished the whole Gita in 6 words. I am God, obey me, fight. Bhagavad Gita Sampurnam. Krishna did not do that. Because the point of the whole reasoning of the Bhagavad Gita is to equip Arjuna's intelligence for making decisions. So, it is Krishna rather than giving Arjuna a decision, Krishna is giving Arjuna the philosophical basis for decision making through the Gita. And if we study the Gita, we will also get a similar basis for our decision making. And that's why the Gita's ethos and even the purpose of a guru is not to make us dependent. Now, having a guru is not about outsourcing our intelligence to the guru. It is about reinforcing our intelligence with the wisdom from the guru. In the same way with the Bhagavad Gita also. So ultimately, each one of us has to make our decisions. And now generally, if somebody is registered in the is in the army, then they have a job. They have to do their duty to fight. Sometimes somebody may have a particular conscience and may feel, I don't want to fight this war. This is just a political war, and I don't agree with the policies of the government or whatever. Then it's generally not proper to abandon the duty at that particular time. Why? Because see, each one of us belongs to a larger whole, and we take something from the whole, we are meant to give something to the whole. So if somebody has been taking salary from the government for all the years when there was peace, and at the time when war comes, at that time they say, I will not go for fighting. Well, what is happening is dharma is harmonious belonging. If we are taking something from somewhere, we have to be giving something back. That if we feel that this whole cause is not valid, then get out of that system. Don't take and then not give. If somebody is working in a company and they're taking a salary from the company, then they need to do the job. Wherever we are, we need to belong. If we feel this company's mission is not moral or whatever, then we can't keep taking a salary and saying, I won't fight. I won't do the work in the company. So, it is, sometimes somebody can be a conscientious objector to war, but we cannot just disrupt the larger whole that has sustained us, from which you are taking sustenance at the time of its need. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
So, just to refer this exact what you said, Prabhuji, Bhishma was like, he knew that it was a mistake of Kauravas and what they did, but still he did not disrupt. He was just, he disrupted and he fought for the wrong cause, right? Because he didn't want to come out of the duty.
It's a complex situation. I can't go into it in much detail, but I'll explain quickly. The Mahabharata is all about a search for dharma. So dharma is the right thing to do. It's about ethics. And there are 3 things in ethics. How do you decide what is the right thing to do? There is the content of our action, what we are doing. Then there is the intent of our action, why we are doing. and then there is the consequence of our action. So all these three factors are to be considered when we are making a decision. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And what is the result of doing it? Now, in ethical theory, there is a debate about among these three, which is the most important thing. Like somebody said that speaking truth is the right thing to do. Always. But then the Puranas have the story that once a thief was, when some thugs were chasing a person, and a sage was sitting at a crossroad. Sage had taken a vow that I'll always speak the truth. And the thieves came and asked, okay, where is this person gone? The sage thought, should I speak, should I not speak? He didn't want to speak a lie, so he did not speak anything, but he pointed with his finger. And there they went and the thugs, they found and they killed that person. And then this particular sage got a karma for that. Because speaking truth is important, but there's another value that is important also. That is, in this case, protecting life. So what happened was, Bhishma, for him, the content was the most important. I have taken a vow, and my vow is the most important thing, whatever happens. So I have taken a vow that I will always protect the ruler of the Kuru dynasty. Now, did he not know Duryodhana was a bad person? Yes. But throughout he was hoping that Duryodhana will see some sense. He was hoping that in the war also, that repeatedly, when they would face reversals, Bhishma would try to speak to Duryodhana. And when he fell on the 10th day, 10th evening, the first thing he said to Duryodhana, "Oh Duryodhana, I have been undefeatable, and yet you saw that I was defeated. There is no way to win. Let these hostilities end with the war." So, was it a wrong decision? Yes, you could say in the big picture it is a wrong decision. But he had a particular ethical conception with which he stuck to that. And that's how he made the decision. I have made my word, and that's what I'm going to stick to, no matter what happens.
Like the same thing, so the third son, right? So like brother of Dhritarashtra did not go to the war. Like he came out of the system.
Vidura.
Vidura. So like they had two different.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So Vidura saw what is the effect,
yeah,
and decided based on the effect that I can't stay with him.
So now we have two examples of the question what Prabhu has asked, right? So you can come out of the duty at some point, but you can also stay with the duty like Bhishma. You can come out of the duty when Vidura. Right? So which is more right in that?
No, so we have to consider. See, is the effect important? Of course, the effect is important. Sticking to a particular process, say even in a hospital, sometimes there's a particular protocol of how a surgery should be done. But if a particular instrument is not available, a particular protocol cannot be followed, and should the doctor say that I cannot do this treatment only? No, especially if you're in emergency duty, you have to be flexible. This is not available, use this and do this. So there's a protocol, and the protocol should be followed. But if following the protocol will require, I don't have this particular kind of scalpel for this kind of surgery, so I won't do the surgery till the scalpel comes. And by the time the scalpel comes, the patient is dead. So there are times when the effect has to be, the consequence has to be given greater priority, and a decision has to be made over there. Thank you. Last question.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you for the class. About these quadrants that you showed, there is known concept, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that there is a lesson in every pain that we experience. But from the quadrants there was fourth one, like I think it was second one that wasn't covered. In other words, is there a pain that has no lesson that we cannot learn anything from?
It's possible. Because, if you start analyzing every single pain, that itself will become a pain. Isn't it? Some psychoanalysis can be good sometimes, but psychotherapy, Prabhupada was asked about this, all the trauma, pains that we face, that's because of something which we have gone through in our lifetime, in our childhood, maybe upbringing. That was Freud's idea of psychotherapy basically. But Prabhupada said, okay, you could, because of your shocks in your childhood, you may be facing pain right now. But even if you understand those shocks, life will shock you in the future again. Isn't it? Life is filled with shocks. So, should we be trying to learn through every pain? Well, yes, if we can. But sometimes there's nothing to, we are finite beings. And because we are finite beings, sometimes there's just nothing to learn over there, or nothing that we can learn. So a devotee should, or as a wise person, we should always have the three things when we are talking about learning. See, there is curiosity that we can always have. Is there something to learn over here? Now from curiosity, we may get some clarity. From clarity, we may get some certainty. So now my understanding is, have curiosity for 100% of things. But we may get clarity over maybe 50% of things. Maybe certainty we might get only for 10% of the things. Was this the lesson to learn from this? Was there something else? Maybe we will know after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Maybe we will never know. Sometimes just bad things happen in life. And we just need to accept that. Yesterday I told this incident about how I got polio. Basically, when I was one, my mother took me to a clinic to get a polio vaccine. But the attendant and the doctor both overlooked that the fridge had lost its power supply the previous night, because of which the temperature of the vaccine had increased and the germs had multiplied. And when they gave that vaccine to me, that ended up causing polio. So instead of preventing the polio. So then I asked my father, my mother, I don't remember asking my mother, but I asked my father about it. He says, how did you deal with it? Was there something for my mother? My mother could have done different, something my father could have done differently. How are they to know over there? So I'm sure she must have felt some kind of guilt, some kind of pain. But my memory of it was, my defining memory of it was about 2.5 or 3. And a distant relative had come to us to console. They had come to us and she was consoling my mother, saying, oh, it's so sad, your son got polio. And I remember mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. She said, whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. So now does that mean, that really helped me a lot. Okay, let me focus on my intellectual side. But still, why that happened? Is there something to learn over there? Is that, can we learn that, don't take an injection the doctor gives unless you yourself examine it? Well, sometimes, terrible things happen in life. We can try to learn as much as possible. So have curiosity about learning from every pain. But curiosity is wanting to learn, wanting to know. Certainty is insisting on knowing. And sometimes, there's just bad things happen. And I have seen, the many devotees, many thoughtful people also, see, thinking is good, but from thinking to overthinking is a slippery slope sometimes. So sometimes the only thing to learn is that there's nothing to learn. But just bad things happen in life. Now we can try to learn. Sometimes, there are just mean people in the world. Some people are just hurtful for the sake of being hurtful. See, we would like to believe that there are no evil people in the world. But the Gita says there's a demoniac nature. And did we do something because of which those people are treating us like that? Maybe it is. But even if we had not done that thing, still those people might have done something. So sometimes that's just okay. Some people are like that, sometimes life is like that. So always try to learn, but don't become attached to learning from every situation. Because that can keep us constantly in replay of the past. Oh, why did this happen? And oh, if only I had spoken like this, if only I had that person done like that, only if that person had done like that. Especially if something tragic has happened in someone's life. At that time I feel often the wound is too raw. And in the name of learning, we can keep lamenting, beating ourselves up, beating someone else up. So, is there something to learn in every pain? Not necessarily. Is there something which we can learn? Maybe not. It's a part of that. Tolerate the pain and move on with life. Like say, the weather is cold over here. So we go out and we experience freezing cold. Is there something to learn? Well, you got something basic to learn. Go out with warm clothes, isn't it? Or don't go out at this time. Go out later time. Something like that you can learn. But the cold is a constant fact over here. There's the fact of the extreme coldness of the weather. Is there something to learn? Well, it's just a fact of life we have to learn to live with, adapt ourselves to. Okay.
Actually, somebody else's negligence is affecting somebody else, right? In many cases, doctors or any like if they
Yeah,
would have
correct.
known
So,
that fridge is
no. So,
broken,
but the thing is that, so what is there to learn? That,
so it's like if they didn't do the duty properly, that's why it's somebody.
yeah, so that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So,
Doing duty properly, our own dharma.
okay, so okay, now you're bringing a different point over here. Let me conclude with this. So, I think I mentioned this yesterday also. Now I'll finish with this. That, say, I had a friend. Did I mention this yesterday about my friend in Florida, whose daughter had cerebral palsy?
No.
No. Okay. So basically, what happened was that so in my case, I have a maternal uncle in America. So when he came to know that I had got polio, the first thing he told my father is sue the doctor, sue the clinic. My father, he's a very peaceful person. His favorite verse from the Bhagavad Gita is Sthita Pragya. I've seen very little, I've seen him getting angry. So he said the Indian legal system is such that even if we file a case in the court, the case will not come before we become old. Isn't it? So anyway, he's got this. Now what can we do about it? We just have to deal with it. But there was one devotee, later on, I recently, 5-6 years ago I met him. He was in Florida, and when his wife was pregnant, some complication happened, so he was rushed to the NICU. But there was some medical negligence, because of which his daughter was born with cerebral palsy and a host of other problems. So it was a clear case of medical negligence. So he wrote to his spiritual master, as my spiritual master, Artha Maharaj. He said, Maharaj, should I accept this as my karma, or should I sue the hospital for this? So Maharaj said that you have to accept what has happened, and you have to take care of your daughter. That is your responsibility now. At the same time, for taking care of your daughter, if you can get some help, if you can get some support, then you should seek that. Because doing this dharma is important. That brings back to the same point. It's not just tolerating our past karma, it's actually executing our present dharma. So then he sued the hospital, and because it is a clear case of medical negligence, they settled outside of court. And he's got a fairly good financial arrangement, at least for his daughter's care. That doesn't change what happened to her. So the point is that sometimes we can fix things, sometimes we can't. So like I say, again, going back to dharma has these two aspects to it. The individual is how I contribute to the whole. So Krishna talks about this conception of dharma in 2.7. Arjuna is asking, Pruchhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta. But dharma as another conception is the social, the collective. How is the whole that I am belonging to contributing to me? So, ideally speaking, harmonious belonging has to go both ways. Say if you are coming for a talk over here, no, you belong harmoniously by being attentive, by not talking, by not letting your phone ring, by not talking on phone. No, but I also need to be belonging harmoniously by speaking something of value. So if what I am speaking is just rambling here and there, or if I come and start speaking something about politics over here, then what will happen is that you will feel, what is the point of being here? So there is sometimes the individual has to adjust and fit into the system, and sometimes you have to fix the system. So Krishna talks about this, fixing the system, when he says, Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Sometimes I come and fix the system. So depending on our particular role, depending our particular position, our particular disposition, sometimes I may decide, okay, sometimes the system is messed up and I just have to live with the system. I can't do much about it. So for example, in India, many Indians who came to America or to the Western world, maybe there were not so many economic opportunities, maybe there was reverse discrimination against certain upper castes or whatever. There's too much competition. So many Indians came to America. Now or come in North America or the Western world. Now maybe here we might face a little racism, we might face a little some other problems. So every larger whole that we belong to will have some problems. Now we could work to fix the larger whole, or we could work to fit ourselves into the larger whole. So it depends what can we do at that particular time. So both can be there. So dharma, that's why it's not easy to decide. So we do generally according to our guna and karma. According to our disposition and our position, we decide what is the best way to move ahead. Thank you very much. Shila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.